be home for Christmas.
Welcome back, America. I will be home for Christmas. I've been back and forth to Texas, but luckily my friend Jim Talent is here with me. Jim, you and I are old enough to remember something called Operation Just Cause. I believe you were in the House of
Yeah,
Representatives when George H.W. Bush
yeah.
ordered the invasion of Panama. So if we can invade Panama without congressional authorization, can Donald Trump strike drug boats?
Yes, you. This whole controversy, I think, is ridiculous. I mean,
Yep.
look, there are subnational movements around the world that are hybrids of criminal gangs and irregular militaries. The Islamic radical groups are that. The Somali pirates, you remember them? And
Yep.
these cartels are similar, and we have always used elements of the armed forces to fight those subnational movements. The Coast Guard has been interdicting this traffic. And by the way, they shoot at these drug boats. Now typically they shoot to disable and to capture because they have boats in the seas and they can do that. And the Coast Guards is one of the uniformed services. So what we've really done is adopted a new tactic, which I think is very effective, not only in deterring drug shipments, because who wants to man these boats now, but also it forces the cartels to adjust, and that lights up their logistic networks. Uh,
Oh,
does that make
interesting.
sense? In other words, they have to change their supply lines. They have to replace lost cargo. They have to move money. And we look at how they do that, and we can see what their logistic networks are. I think it's a very smart move. And if there's one thing maybe we need to make the rules of engagement clearer. If I was still there, that would be my question. I'd have two questions for Exit. One is, are the rules of engagement clear enough? And number two, if you really did give that order, I don't really have a problem with the order, but I'm not so sure I want the Secretary of Defense commanding that far down the chain. You know what I mean?
And I
That's why
don't
we
think
have
he
flag
did.
officers.
I'm
I don't
willing
think
to
he did
wait.
either.
I'm willing to wait to find out. I remember Secretary Rumsfeld telling me after he retired the second time that the difference between the first time he was SecDef and the second time he was SecDef is that the number of lawyers at the Pentagon had gone up by 10,000. So they
Yes.
got to have a few lawyers in the room. But I keep arguing. I argued with Noah Rothman today. There is no need for congressional authorization to do this. The president is commander in chief of the military. And if Congress doesn't like what he wants, what he's doing, they can pass a modern day Boland Amendment and stop it. And then the issue would be joined. That's pretty much the way it
Here,
ought to work.
we can argue about the abstract legalities, and I leave that to con law professors like you. But as a practical matter, here's what it amounts to: when the president engages in a military operation that is so extensive or so intense or lasts so long that he has to get a supplemental appropriation, he can't take it out of hide from the Department of Defense, then he has to get congressional. Either Congress appropriates the money, they pass the supplemental, or they don't. And I'll tell you, this Congress will pass this supplemental, and I would like to see my friends on the other side vote against trying to interdict this drug
Yeah.
trafficking. This got to be one of the most well. We surveyed it in the Reagan Institute survey, and it was like 62% of people supported it, and I was surprised it was that low. I mean, I
Yeah.
I figured it'd be 80, 90%.
The silliest argument I ran into thus far is that they don't make fentanyl in Venezuela, they only make cocaine. Well, cocaine caused 25,000 American deaths last year, as opposed to fentanyl causing between 50 and 100,000. It's not that much of a difference. They're narcotics. They're trying to get them into the United States, and we can blow up their boats. And if the Congress doesn't want us to, they can cut the money off. But it's not a war. You don't need a declaration of war.
Uh, no, I don't think so. Hey, look, you mentioned Operation Just Cause. Frankly, and I was not in the Congress at the time, I thought that HW should have gotten congressional authorization. That was an invasion. That's not going to happen in Venezuela. These cartels have their tentacles everywhere. As I said before, they are hybrids. They're part criminal gangs and they are part irregular military operations. And that's what we have in armed forces. The reason we started the Navy was to fight the Barbary pirates. I mean, that wasn't
I
a
thought you
war
were in the
against the country.
Panama's 89. Didn't you? Weren't you in the House in 89?
I went in 92. I'm not quite that old. I went in
Okay, so
92. Of course, it was a huge, that was a regime change operation too. And he didn't get any. Look, I've argued for years. I used to argue with Romney a little bit about this, that I thought presidents often should get authorizations, even if they don't have to, because make them vote, make them debate it, make them express an opinion. I mean, I think it's often a prudential thing to do, but this is too low level a thing, and it's too close to a law enforcement exercise. And I want to say one other thing too, Hugh. When we sank Japanese naval vessels in World War II, and there were survivors and they were on lifeboats, if we had a boat nearby that could pick them up and capture them and they wanted to surrender, that's what we did. If we thought they were going to paddle over to another an active Japanese combatant vessel and get back in the war, you know what we did? We shot them.
Killed them.
That's what we did.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So here, that's exactly the question here. And I don't, I think it's ridiculous to suggest that our line officers and the people who are making these decisions, that we should subject them to a whole cadre of hindsight by lawyers. I mean, I don't. I mean, if we had,
it's disgusting. A couple of Democrats came out of the Intel Committee today and criticized the admiral for the decision to make the second strike. And I cannot believe that they're second guessing the military in an active interdiction campaign. It's up to the admiral to make that decision, not members of Congress who want to score political points.
Yeah, well, that's in the first instance, there's no question that's correct. And look, we could find, and the Navy will do this, we could find out, I guess, that the order wasn't warranted. And believe me, that will then reflect on his record or possibly even be court-martialed. But generally speaking, the fact that these were, for these purposes, enemy combatants. I know Andy McCarthy doesn't think so, bless his heart. And if we weren't certain they were out of the war, we were entitled to take them out of the war.
Amen. Jim, always good to talk to you. Senator Jim Talent, follow him on X with the Reagan Institute. They're having their Reagan Defense Forum right now. Follow him at Jim Talent, easiest X handle to remember in the world, Jim Talent. Talk to you next week. Don't go anywhere, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are sponsored in part by Prison Fellowship's Angel Tree.